We've been talking about Chase Young for a very long time. I feel like we have not been talking about Jeff Okudah practically at all, and he may very well be the third pick in this draft. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, Mike, Jeffrey Okudah, he's the best player in the draft that really nobody's talking about with his elite athleticism, his length, his versatility. He's a guy that compares to Jalen Ramsey because he does everything so well. So you look at it, he has the press coverage. That's what you want to see. He's sticky, sticks to his receivers right there. You watch him drive on the football, finish the play, does an absolutely terrific job using his ability. Then he can play off coverage, sitting back, diagnosing routes, undercutting receivers, and then finishing it off the way you want to see a guy with the interception. And then lastly, you want a guy who's a willing and able tackler, able to drive down and make plays in the short passing game or in the run game. Big part of what Jeff Okudah can do.
Give me a comparable. Give me a guy in the NFL who he might remind us of.
You know, people say Richard Sherman, but to me, he's faster. He's more athletic than Richard Sherman even was at his peak. I have to go with a guy like Jalen Ramsey, except you don't necessarily have to worry about him ever showing up to training camp in a Brinks truck. So I think he's an unbelievable guy off the field.
All right, yeah, listen, I know it's an unpopular opinion. It is my opinion that a shutdown corner is actually more valuable in the NFL right now than a guy who gets after the quarterback. And so maybe, Okudah will wind up being as important as any player. Something that has come up, and it was very much on display during the college basketball conference tournaments, and now I think is becoming an issue again, is the fact that there is no real centralized authority that tells these conferences what they're all going to do. Instead, they all kind of go their own ways. That's starting to rear, I think, a bit of an ugly head. So, Booger, we might have a situation, it's not inconceivable, where the SEC might be looking to play football games this fall, and the Pac-12 may not be able to. In your mind, how significant a problem is that?
Well, Green, I think it's a huge problem, especially when you take it a step further and you look at the Power Five and the Group of Five. I think the fact that there's no uniformity in college football speaks to a bigger problem that the NCAA has. And, I understand that this pandemic and the coronavirus is regionalized in certain parts are definitely hit harder than others. But if you're college football, you cannot have a region of the country playing a game and another region not. I think there needs to be uniformity. And I think the bigger issue with the NCAA is they don't have anybody that can control the entire group. You have the Group of Five and the Power Five. And there leads to, you got coaches on doing interviews, saying different things, and they're putting out wrong messaging when it comes to COVID-19 and how you should come out as far as a football institution, whether you play or whether you don't play. And I think the fact that the messaging is bad leads to another issue that we don't have uniformity. We don't have like a czar of football. And to me, that's the bigger issue.
A really interesting thought. Bobby, what is the holdup? What is it standing between the conferences and the idea of some sort of overall authority?
Well, it's one of the things that's going to be as old as time itself. When you look at it, it's power, it's authority, it's money. And if you sit here and watch every different conference, they're on different networks. Each conference has their own television network now. Each conference has their own TV deal. And so they don't want to acquiesce and give those things away. And so that's probably the biggest part of this, is why nobody really wants to concede some of their authority, because they feel if we give some of this away, we'll eventually give all of it away. And that's why the NCAA right now, they've been emasculated over the last 5 to 7 to 10 years, where they had probably more authority before, and that has been scaled back because the conferences want it so they can dictate the terms of how they play in their region of the country. Because frankly, most people in the Southeast don't care about the West Coast until the bowl games or the Midwest or whatever it is. You care about what's in front of you and the product and the schools that you care about at that point in time.
It was never more clearly on display, I think, than just a month ago during the conference college basketball tournaments when the NCAA makes a ruling in Indianapolis. Right there in that same city, the Big Ten tournament appears as though they're going to continue. They're not really paying attention to what they're saying. The ACC is doing their thing. The SEC is doing theirs. The Big East actually plays half of one game and then calls off the rest of it. I do believe that if there is one thing that one of many that may come out of this in the area of sports, it is that someone needs to be in charge, because right now it does not appear that's the case. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.